Okay, welcome back, everybody, to Tanakh Yomi. We are up to Shoftim, Perek Yud Aleph and Yud Bet. So yesterday, at the end of the Perek Yud, we saw that because the Jewish people went back to their old bad ways and started committing idolatry again, so the Bnei Ammon, right, the nation Ammon, started ruling over us and persecuting us, and um, and it said, of course, that Bnei Israel, however, had done tshuva. Remember, we saw it a little bit before that. So now we're going to see the story of Yiftach Hagiladi, the next Shofet who saved the Jewish people from Ammon. I think it's a good place to mention a very famous Gemara that says, Yiftach Bedoro Kishmuel Bedoro. We all know how great Shmuel was. Shmuel, it says, Moshe v'Aaron b'choanav u'Shmuel b'korei shemo, right? That Shmuel was, to a certain degree, even on the level of Moshe and Aaron. He was certainly unbelievably great. But the Gemara says that each generation has its gadol, and it doesn't matter. You can't compare gadoling from different generations. And the example of a gadol of his generation is Yiftach. Yiftach bedoro kishmo bedoro. Even though he wasn't amazing, but he was still the gadol. He was the leader, and he was also a Torah scholar of his generation. So Yiftach, the son of Gilad, that's why he's called Hagiladi. He was born from a zona, from a prostitute, harlot. And so the other brothers, the legitimate brothers of his family, basically kicked him out of the house because they didn't want him to be with them. So he runs away, and he gets involved with less than prominent, less than great people. Let's put it this way: Rekim, as it says, Rekim, Anashim Rekim, meaning lowlives. Basically, he gets involved with a bunch of lowlives, and a while later, when Bnei Ammon really start pressuring the Jewish people, so the elders of Gilad, where Yiftach was from, so Yiftach and Giladi, son of Gilad, and also it sounds like the name of the place that he lived in was named Gilad. So they sent, the elders of Gilad send a message to Yiftach and say, can you please come and help us and fight against the Bnei Ammon, the people of Ammon. Yiftach answers them and says, why do you want me now? You're the ones who made fun of me and got rid of me, and you didn't want to have anything to do with me, and all of a sudden you want me? So they said, you know what? You're right, but we are offering you now to become our leader. If you go and fight against Bnei Ammon and you become our leader, we will accept you as the leader. Yiftach basically agrees, but he says, not exactly. You have to first make me the leader, no matter what, and then I will go out and fight. And that's what happens. And basically, they accept him as their leader. So Yiftach sends a message to the king of Ammon, obviously through messengers, and he says, what do you want from us? Why are you fighting against us? And to me, by the way, the upcoming psukim are some of the most important psukim in Sefer Shoftim. As I've said before, this book is the most relevant book in Tanakh, in my humble opinion, to our day and age. There are so many parallels and similarities between what happened then and what's happening now. So Yiftach sends to the king of Ammon, why are you bothering us? And what does the king of Ammon say in Pasuk Yud Gimel? Ki lakach Yisrael dartzi. You stole my land. Don't we hear that today? Then certain nations, certain non-Jews are saying that we stole the land of Israel, the land of Canaan from them, as if they've been here for hundreds and thousands of years, which is a pure lie. And then Yiftach sends back a message and basically goes through, you have to read this inside, you have to go pasuk by pasuk and see how a Jewish leader should answer such a question. Basically, in the big picture, what he says to them is, this is our land. God gave us this land. And you know what, it's so relevant to Parshat Bereshit, which we're going to talk about tomorrow. Parshat Bereshit, the famous first Rashi, where Rashi says the whole reason for Bereshit is to tell us that God created the world and he gave Eretz Canaan, the land of Canaan, to whoever he wanted to, and he took it away from them and gave it to us, and it's our land. Hashem gave us the land of Israel. And that's really the answer we have to give. We don't have to start making, excuses. We simply have to say, this is our land. And that's more or less what he says when he goes through the whole history of what happened in reality. It wasn't us who took the land from you. It was Sichon who took the land from Bnei Ammon. They had a war first, and then Sichon took it over. And then we fought Sichon. That we know. We've seen it many times. Sefer Yoshua and Shoftim. Of course, the Sefer Bamidbar, that's where it actually happened, where we fought against Sichon and took the land from him. But we didn't fight against Bnei Ammon. Sichon first took it from Bnei Ammon. And he sums it up by saying in Pasuk of Dalid, Halo et asher yorishcha kemosh Elohecha oto tirash. Whatever your God, whose name was Kemosh, whatever he gave you as an inheritance, that's yours. But that which God gave to us, that's ours. Meaning, if it's really your land, so why isn't your God allowing you to get the land? Because Hashem gave us this land; it's ours, and that's the way a Jewish leader has to answer. Say, no apologetics. This is our land. We came back after 2,000 years of exile. This is where we belong. So, and then he also says, it's been 300 years since Yoshua came and conquered the land. And why haven't, it says that, by the way, Pasuk Haba, right? B'Shevet Yisrael b'Cheshbon v'Notea ba'Aror v'Notea Shlosh Meot Shana. It's been 300 years from Yoshua's days, the Mefarshim explained, until now. So why did you do anything about it until now? Why did you come and take the land back and say it's yours until now? And I didn't. It's not me. I didn't sin against you. We didn't take anything from you. And basically, may God judge between the two of us. And of course, the king of Ammon doesn't accept all this, and he comes out to fight against the Jews anyway. And in Pasuk of Ted, Vatzehi al Yiftach Ruach Hashem, Hashem gives him a spirit of strength, and he fights against Bnei Ammon. But before he goes out to battle, he makes his famous, maybe we should call it infamous, neder, oath, and he says in Pasuk Lamed, if God gives the Bnei Ammon into my hands, if he delivers them into my hands, the first thing that comes out of my house when I come back home, I will halitihu le'olah, I will offer it up as an olah, as a burnt offering. So he goes and fights, and he totally routs them and conquers 20 cities, and basically totally subdues Bnei Ammon before Bnei Israel. Yiftach comes home, and much to his chagrin, the first thing that comes out of his house is his daughter, who comes out with musical instruments to dance before her father because of the great victory he brought for Am Yisrael. And as the Navi points out, this is his only child. There's different Mefarshim exactly what it means, but the simplest way to read it is that he had no other children. This was his only one, or some say it was that she had not yet gotten married and had children, so he had no children from her. Either way, he tears his clothing because he realizes what a terrible thing had just happened. He has to fulfill his neder. Now, of course, Chazal tell us that he did not have to fulfill the neder. He could have just gone to Pinchas, I think it was, right, the Gadol Hador, the Kohen Gadol, and say, explain the circumstances, and I didn't mean this, etc. He could have gotten out of it, but he didn't, which is one of the reasons we say Yiftach B'Dorah Kishmul B'Dorah, because he wasn't the greatest Talmud Chacham. If he was, he would have realized that such a neder can be annulled. However, he laments what happened, and then his daughter says to him, you should fulfill your neder. You promised you should do it, but I just beg that if I could have 2 months to leave Kot al Betula, to cry for her virginity, meaning the fact that she's never going to be able to get married and have children. And she does that. He gives her permission. She does that. And then let's look at the last two psukim. Lametet Vayihimi Kate Shnaim Chodeshim. After these 2 months, so she goes out to the mountains and cries. Batashav, with some of her friends, by the way. Batashav El Havia. She returns to her father. Vayas La Et Midro Asher Nadar. He fulfilled the neder. Now, what does that mean? What does that mean? So, the simple shot that most of them of Harshim give, not talking about what Chazal say, is that he didn't actually slaughter her and put her up on his bath and burn her to death. No, he simply separated her from all other human beings so that she would be like a monk to a certain degree and be osek be'avodat Hashem, as it says, v'hi lo yadaish, because right away afterwards it says that she didn't, right? V'hi lo yadaish v'tichok b'Yisrael, right? That she didn't know any men, meaning she didn't have relations with any men, meaning she didn't die. She just remained a monk the rest of her life. The monk, of course, is not a borrowed term, and never got married. That's the simple shot. But Chazal say, it's brought by the Mitzvah David in the Malbim, that Bemet, he brought her as a korban, whatever exactly that means. And then that pasuk ends with the words "Vatihi chok b'Yisrael." What does that mean? The chok b'Yisrael likonein, to lament this happened. Well, to lament this. I'm sorry, I'm reading it wrong. But note, Vayitol chok b'Yisrael. That what's written in the next pasuk. The next pasuk became like a chok b'Yisrael, which is what? Let's read it. Miyamim yamima, that every year telachna benot Yisrael litanot levat Yiftach. All the benot Yisrael would go to lament over the daughter of Yiftach HaGiladi. Arba'at yamim b'shana, 4 times a year they would go and lament what happened to her. That's the chok b'Yisrael. V'tihi chok b'Yisrael. Another explanation is that no, they made a chok b'Yisrael because of what happened. They made a rule that no one should ever do such a ridiculous thing again. No one should ever, offer up his daughter as a korban, because he should have gone to Pinchas, like I said before, and he should have just annulled the neder, and everything would have been okay. And that ends Perek Yud Aleph. Perek Yud continues the story. What happened was that Bnei Ephraim, the people from Ephraim, were very angry at Yiftach for not calling them to help him in his battle. And Yiftach answers him and says, well, you know what? I've been in trouble before and you've never helped me before. So why should I have called you to help me this time? So what happens next is that Yiftach, or actually the Bnei Ephraim come out really to battle against Yiftach, and Yiftach fights against Bnei Ephraim. It's sort of like unfortunately, like a civil war here. And Vayaku in Pasuk Dal, Vayaku Anshe Gilad Ephraim, the people of Gilad smote Ephraim, the Bnei Ephraim. Now why? Look at that pasuk. Ki amru plitei Ephraim atem Gilad betoch Ephraim betoch Menashe. That's a very difficult pasuk to understand, but more or less the way that to understand it is that the reason why Gilad got so angry at Ephraim is because the Bnei Ephraim would make fun of the Bnei Gilad and say that the lowliest of Ephraim, the lowliest of Ephraim would say, you Gilad, what are you? You're not important betoch Ephraim, meaning compared to Ephraim, you're nobody. Or betoch Menashe, amongst the people of Menashe, you're nobody, you Giladians, you're nobody. And therefore, that very much upset the Bnei Gilad, and therefore they fought against Bnei Ephraim. There's other shots, but let's keep it like that. And Gilad, Yiftach and his men, they captured the crossing to the Yarden, meaning they would not allow the Bnei Ephraim to cross back over the Yarden. And what happened? So the Bnei Ephraim is a very famous story. The Bnei Ephraim would want to cross and not tell them that they're Bnei Ephraim because they knew that they would kill them. So what they do? They would say, we're just crossing the river. What's the problem? Let us go. And the Bnei Anshe Gilad would say to them, okay, no problem. Just are you from Bnei Ephraim? And they would say, no, of course not. We have nothing to do with Ephraim, right? Because they wanted to get over. And then the Bnei Gilad had a trick. They had a way of telling whether they were Bnei Ephraim telling the truth, that they weren't Bnei Ephraim, or they really were from Bnei Ephraim. What did they say? They said to them, you have to say the word shibolet, because the Bnei Ephraim couldn't pronounce the shin. They would say instead sibolet. And therefore, every time they say, okay, here's the password, say shibolet, and you can go through. And they would say sibolet, and then they started killing the Bnei Ephraim. And listen to this terrible statistic. In Pasuk Vav, Vayipol Ba'it Ha'ibeh Ephraim, Arba'im U'Shnayim Elef. We're not talking about a little spat. We're talking about 42,000 Bnei Ephraim were killed because they were making fun of Bnei Gilad, because they falsely accused Yiftach of not calling them to battle, etc. And then it ends Yiftach's story by saying that Yiftach was the Shofet for 6 years, and then died, and he was buried in the city of Gilad. After him, after Yiftach, was the Shofet named Ivtzan from Beit Lechem, and it tells a little bit about him. He had 3 sons and 3 daughters, and etc. And he was the Shofet for 7 years, and then he died. After him was Elon Hazavuloni, Pasuk Yud Aleph, and he was the Shofet for 10 years. And then when he died, Avdon ben Hillel Hapir Atoni, Pasuk Yud Gimel, he was the next Shofet. And it tells about him that he had 40 sons and 20 and 30, grandsons. They all rode fancy donkeys. And he was the Shofet for 8 years. He died and was buried near his place in Eretz Ephraim, in Har HaMaliki. And tomorrow we will continue and see the next Shofet in mind. Okay, see you tomorrow.